Şimdi gençler, oyun geçen sefer hata verince ben bir daha komple oynadım. Seviyelerine kadar getirdim. Burada bıraktım. Oyun neye göre hata veriyor, neye göre hata vermiyor anlayabilmiş değilim açıkçası. Buradan çıkalım gidelim artık. Arada kayıt atamadığımız için hata verdiği zaman çok kötü oluyor ya. Gerçekten çok kötü oluyor yani. Deyman. Şurada da bir daha kayıt yapalım. Bu arada beyaz kılıç kuşanılırken bataklıktan yürüyüp geçebiliyoruz. Normalde batıyordu. Sanki yani rüzgar gücü, hafiflik veriyor sana falan tarzı bir şeyler yapmıştır. Şöyle göstereyim.
Choice but to act purely on blind faith. There was no way to tell what error this device was tuned to, and I had neither the knowledge nor the means to set the machine myself. I hesitated only briefly. Then, throwing the switch, I hurled myself into oblivion and relinquished my will to the hand of fate.
Ya şimdi saçma bir şey var oyunla ilgili bence. İlk oyunun sonunda Kain bu işte zaman makinesini kullanarak bu kısma geçiyordu. O kadar Kain sana yardım edeceğim tarzı konuşmalar yapıyor. İşte ikimiz de aynı gemideyiz, ikimiz bilmem ne yapacağız falan filan diyor. Lan şunu kullanmayı niye öğretmiyor sana? Niye sormuyorsun? Ben olsam sorardım birader. İstediğin yere gitme özgürlüğün var. Zaman makinesi lan. Bu zaman dilimi bayağı güzel, bence en güzellerinden biri. Şöyle geçelim.
Beyond all
Karlar,
hope and against all probability,
kar yağıyor,
it seemed
soğuk,
that the
kış
device had
dönemi.
unerringly delivered me to the era I sought. For these were Sarafan banners, and these vampires apparently the victims of their crusade. The coincidence seemed too convenient to naively ascribe to fate. But whether my opportune arrival had been orchestrated by Mobius or some other influence, I didn't know. If Janos Audron still lived, I would find him. I was wary of further deception.
Şimdi normalde
To tread carefully.
çok konuşuyorlar ya. Normalde şuradan aşağı inip gitmem lazım ama bana ateşin gücü de lazım şu an. Yani fire Reaver lazım. O yüzden oraya gitmeye gerek yok. Janos Audron'la falan konuşup şeye gideceğiz. Ateş tapınağına gideceğiz. Oradan Soul Reaver'ın ateş elemental gücünü alacağız. Tabii o hata verip de canımızı sıkmazsa. Kilitlenip duruyor. Kurbağa hep burada ya. Kaç yüzyıl geçerse geçsin kurbağa hep burada. Ne yapıyor lan? Şurada temiz temiz kaydımızı atalım. Bir tane asker yok
For
burada.
all the butchery of Mobius's crusade, this massacre was somehow more chilling. The killing fields of the Sarafan betrayed a kind of orderly ruthlessness, the cold-blooded righteousness of the true believer.
Onların zırhları, kılıçları falan bayağı havalı.
Here at last, in the flesh, I beheld my former brothers in arms, the warrior priests of the Sarafan order, their lives devoted solely to the annihilation of the vampire plague. And while I confess, I felt a twinge of longing, a pang of grief for what I had believed was my lost virtue, I regarded them now with none of the reverence I formerly felt. For I had seen the human face of the vampires, and now I beheld the monstrousness of these men.
Ya şimdi düşünsene, Allah. Düşünsene burada askerse birader. Şuradan bir tane böyle şeytan geliyor. Kanatlı bir şey geliyor nasıl satayım. Buradan koşuyor düz duvara tırmanıyor. Ben şimdi adam düz duvara tırmanınca ben bir düşünürüm ya. Lan dedim herif düz duvara tırmanıyor. Ben bundan bir uzak durayım falan dedim. Ne kaçıyorsun lan? Büyücü. Hem kel hem büyücü. Over there. Herkese tek atma keyfi. Neyse kaçırdım seni. Tık tık tık tık tık. zaman diliminde kasaba terk edilmemiş anladığım kadarıyla. Onu anlatmaya çalışıyor böyle aralarda dolaşa dolaşa. Uschtenheim. Uschtenheim. Çok güzel abi. Buraya kadar getirdik. Burada da sev attık. Tamam. Şu ses gelecek. Tıkık sesi gelince tamamen açılmış oluyor. Hop. Hop. Ha. Tamam.
After my long journey, I finally stood on the threshold of enlightenment. For here was Janos Audron's mountain retreat, intact and unblemished. The upheaval that would one day topple this ancient edifice had not yet occurred. And while I had no certainty that Janos still lived, this scene boded well. For I presumed that the collapse of the retreat must have followed the ancient vampire's demise. There was only one obstacle. How to reach the balcony suspended at that maddening height, so far beyond my reach. For this was the architecture of winged creatures. The tattered ruins of my wings were of no use. I would need to devise some other means into that mountain.
Susam açıl. Şimdi yani buraya şey lazım. Havanın gücü lazım. burada modu kullanmak istemiyorum. Çünkü hani normalde şey lazım, siyah Reaver lazım şurası için. Burada modu kullanıp yaparsam şuradaki yolu açmadığım için hikaye bilmiyorum ne olur yani. Hiç denemek istemiyorum. Belki sonra oyunu bitirdikten sonra save'den açıp deneyebilirim. Çünkü bu yolu açmazsam Sarafan şövalyeleri gelip Janos'u öldürmüyor. Zannetmiyorum bir şey olacağını da. Gel abi gel. Gel. Yani bir sonraki oyunda daha çok elemental güç var. Bu dördüne ek olarak şey var, toprağın gücü var. Bir de ne vardı abi? Bir de su var, su. Su var. Şöyle yapacağız. Şunu alacağız. Bu arada şu şeyi falan çok adamlar uğraşmış abi, baksana yani. Yani o dönemde çıkan hiçbir oyunda bu kadar net yansımalar hatırlamıyorum ben. Şu kulaklığı bırak.
The mountain's interior was hollow, I discovered, and graced with soaring architecture unique to its creators. As with the outer facade, these balconies and galleries could only be reached by those gifted with flight. With only my ruined wings to carry me, this towering labyrinth seemed impassable, while the object of my quest lay just beyond my grasp. For here, suspended at the apex of the chamber, was the threshold that surely led to the great vampire himself. I didn't know whether Janos Audron was the monster depicted in the stronghold, or one of the noble creatures memorialized among the ruins of the ancient vampires. And I didn't care. Demon or angel, he alone held the key to my destiny.
gelirsek hızlıca yukarı çıkabilelim diye rüzgar zımbırtısından bekledi. Bu kadar sıcak olmasa iyi ya. Gerçekten yoruyor insanı.
Janos Audron?
It is heartening after all these years to hear my name spoken without contempt. Raziel? My child, what have they done to you?
I have been dragged through hell and back. All it seems to reach this moment. But I don't yet know why.
For thousands of years I have waited, alone, here, losing faith. At the time of the binding, 9 guardians were called to serve the pillars, and I was summoned as the 10th guardian, the keeper of the Reaver, the weapon of our salvation. Over time, our race died out, until I alone remained, sustained only by my obligation to you and by my guardianship of the blade.
And the other 9? Why did their guardianship not sustain them?
I don't know. As our race dwindled, the humans prospered. I have watched over the centuries as our history faded into myth and finally receded altogether. The humans have forgotten us entirely and claimed the pillars for themselves, wholly ignorant of their true purpose. To them, I am merely a devil, the origin of their vampire plague.
Why would the pillars summon human guardians then, if they are meant to be served by vampires?
Tamam.
The pillars choose their guardians from birth, Raziel, and vampires are no longer born. This is the crux of our dilemma, and this is the terrible irony. With their vampire purge, the members of the Circle have assaulted the very architects of the pillars they are sworn to protect. They have embarked on a treacherous path. With every vampire they kill, the humans are slitting their own throats. They know I'm up here, beyond their reach, and it terrifies them. You can see how they flaunt their kills to torment me, or perhaps simply to lure me out. They have this foolish notion that destroying me will somehow topple our entire bloodline. Thankfully, we're not that fragile.
I have seen them mustering their forces in the village below.
Yes. I don't know what they're plotting, but I fear our time may be bitterly short.
Mankind seems to have brought you only torment and grief. You must hate them.
They fear what they don't understand, and they despise what they fear. But no, I do not hate them.
Vorador does.
He has suffered much. He cannot forgive them.
Should they be forgiven?
They don't understand what they're doing. They are simply unenlightened and vulnerable to manipulation.
So, it's all true then, what Kain and Vorador have told me. I really am some kind of unholy vampire messiah.
Unholy? No. Messiah, perhaps.
I don't like that word. It smells of martyrdom.
Raziel, your role in this world's destiny is more crucial and more benevolent than you've allowed yourself to believe. Your journey will not be easy. Dark powers are allied against you. But I think you already know this. You appear to have been cruelly tested. The binding must be secured, Raziel. The pillars are the lock.
And the Reaver is the key.
Yes. The Reaver is here. Why do I feel nothing?
The most formidable weapon ever forged by our swordsmiths. They infused the blade with vampiric energy, empowering the Reaver to drain our enemies of their precious lifeblood.
As Janos presented the blade, an inexplicable sense of dread crept over me, more palpable than anything I'd felt before. I I was at once horribly repelled by the sword, and yet irresistibly compelled to touch it, to take it up. Please, take it away from me.
I fear you have been followed.
Bu Raziel işte. İnsan hali.
You must save yourself, Raziel.
Tamam.
Janos! No!
Tamam, güzel abi. Şimdi
My
burada bir kayıt
surroundings
yeri var.
whirled sickeningly, and I found myself transported safely away from the ambush to an adjacent chamber. Janos had delivered me from the Sarafan, selflessly forfeiting his own safety to preserve my life. And now I feared that my newfound mentor would be slaughtered by the very crusaders I had so recently revered. The irony pierced me, and with dawning horror, I realized that I had been duped by Mobius from the beginning. For the Sarafan had simply followed the path I gullibly blazed through this sanctuary, and had arrived bearing Mobius's staff. Thus armed, they had Janos at their mercy. Through the door, I could hear them battling, less than a dozen paces away. But it may as well have been 1,000 miles, for this barrier was sealed by elemental forces I did not possess. It seemed Janos had conveyed me into the heart of the fire shrine. I thought perhaps if I could galvanize the forge and imbue the Reaver in time, I might have a slim chance of saving Janos from his grisly fate.
Hadi koçum ya. Amma şey gösterdin, anladık. Şimdi şu heykel kesinlikle biziz ya. Baksana abi tipe. Neyse. Şimdi Janos'la şeyi konuşuyor bunlar. Biz diyor Pillar'ları insanlara emanet ettik çünkü Pillar'lar gardiyanlarını doğumda seçer diyor ve artık vampirler doğmuyordu diyor. Çünkü bunun sebebi de bu Hilden ırkının verdiği lanet. Ölümsüz yapıyor vampirleri falan filan. Bunu kaydettik değil mi lan? Bir daha kaydedeceğim valla. Kaydetti herhalde de. Tamam. Videoyu burada sonlandırıyorum. Artık burası biraz uzun. Sonra da herhalde bir saate falan bitecek oyun ya. Öyle görünüyor.